Midway through John's Gospel, the authorities have heard enough. Jesus is teaching in the temple courts, in public, at the feast, and they move to arrest him. Nothing happens. And John tells you exactly why it failed. No one laid a hand on him, because his hour had not yet come. One chapter later, they try again. John gives the same reason, word for word. No one arrested him, because his hour had not yet come. Now, you've most likely read straight past those lines. Most of us do. But John planted that phrase long before the temple. At a village wedding, before any of it, the wine runs out. And Jesus tells his own mother, "My hour has not yet come." He says it to his mother, at a wedding, about wine. So what is this hour? What kind of appointment stops an arrest in the middle of a crowd and still comes up over the wine at a wedding? And who set it? That's what this video plans to answer. Because John's Gospel has a clock running in it, wound a little tighter every chapter, and it strikes exactly once. And the hour it strikes explains the boldest thing Jesus ever said about his own death, that nobody took his life from him. Start with the word itself, because it has been hiding in plain sight your whole life. The Greek word John writes in every one of those scenes is hora. Say it once, hora, and you have very nearly said it in English, because this word never died. The Greeks handed it to the Romans as hora, Latin passed it into French, and French carried it into English as the word on every clock you own. Hour. Spelt differently, worn smooth by 2,000 years, but the same word. The word Jesus used about his own death is still on your wall, telling you the time. And in John's Gospel, it usually means nothing more than that. John writes it 26 times, and half of those are as ordinary as a wristwatch. 2 curious disciples follow Jesus home, and John remembers the time of day. It was about the 10th hour. Jesus himself, tired from a long road, sits down at a well, about the 6th hour. A desperate father checks a timestamp against the miracle. Yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. Jesus himself counts with it. Are there not 12 hours in the day? That is a clock word doing clock work. One honest note about that clock, though. A first-century hour was not 60 fixed minutes. You cut the daylight into 12 parts, so an hour stretched in the summer and shrank in the winter. Everyday time, flexible, unremarkable. There is no secret meaning packed into the syllables, and this study is not going to pretend there is. It is a pattern. Because now, watch what happens when a pronoun lands in front of it. My hour, his hour. In a small set of sentences spread across the whole gospel, the ordinary clock word stops telling the time of day and starts telling the time of something else, something specific, something that has an owner who keeps checking it. John even writes the word a third way. An hour is coming, a quiet thread that matters at the far end of the story. But the owned hour is the mystery on the table. And this is not a private theory about John. Open one of the standard Greek lexicons to this word, and alongside the seasons and the clock times sits a sober entry for one's hour. The time when a person must undergo what God has appointed for them. The proof texts that entry lists are the 2 failed arrests from the opening of this study. The lexicographers saw the pattern too. Half the occurrences in this book are plain clock. The rest are counting towards something, and the counting starts earlier than you would ever guess. The first time the clock speaks, there is no temple, no crowd, no fret. It is a wedding. On the 3rd day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. The wine runs out, which for the hosting family is a public embarrassment in the making, and Mary brings the problem to her son in 4 words. They have no wine. His answer is the strangest sentence in the chapter. Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. Start with the word woman, because to modern ears it sounds cold, and honest readers have argued about the tone of this exchange for centuries. Whatever else is true, the address was an ordinary, respectful one in that world. And Jesus uses the same word from the cross while arranging his mother's care. The sentence is strange, but it is not cruel. Then there is the reason he gives. She asked about wine, he answers with a clock. My hour has not yet come. As though somewhere behind the conversation, behind the party, there is a schedule she cannot see, and her request has just brushed against it. And then, having said not yet, he acts anyway. His mother seems to hear the not yet better than most readers do. because she does not argue with it. She simply turns to the servants. Do whatever he tells you. He tells the servants to fill the jars, and the water becomes wine, the first of his signs. And John says his disciples believed in him. So the "not yet" was not a refusal. Some readers take the hour at Cana as simply the right moment to begin his public work. Others hear the whole weight it will carry later, the hour of his death, already sounding underneath a wedding. John does not settle it here, and there is no need to force it, because this is how he teaches. He hands you a word early, lets it sit half-lit, and spends the rest of the book turning up the light. What can be said for certain is this. From the second chapter of this gospel, Jesus is living against a clock that no one else can read. His mother cannot see it. The disciples cannot see it. It touches the smallest things, wine at a village wedding, and it is already running. The next time the word appears, the stakes will not be a wedding's reputation. They will be his life, and the clock will hold. Fast forward to the feast, and the mood could not be more different. The crowds in Jerusalem are asking out loud, "Is not this the man whom they seek to kill?" This is not a hidden plot. Everybody knows. And Jesus responds to a public death threat by teaching in the temple, in the open, daily. The authorities finally move. So they were seeking to arrest him, but no one laid a hand on him, because his hour had not yet come. Read that sentence again, because the second half is the strange half. John is not saying the arrest failed for lack of nerve or lack of manpower. He is the narrator, and he is telling you flatly the reason it could not happen. The hour, the wedding word, the schedule his mother brushed against is now standing between Jesus and a crowd that wants him dead. The chief priests do send officers, men with orders, and the officers come back without him. Their explanation to their superiors is its own small miracle. No one ever spoke like this man. They walked in to make an arrest and walked out having listened. And John records a third failure inside the same feast, in a single line. Some of them wanted to arrest him, but no one laid hands on him. Wanting was never going to be enough. One chapter later, it happens again, and John repeats himself on purpose. Jesus is teaching in the treasury, about as public as the temple gets, but no one arrested him, because his hour had not yet come. Same clause, word for word. Once could be an aside. Twice, in the narrator's own voice, is an explanation John does not want you to miss. The reason this man is untouchable is not luck, and it is not politics. It is the clock. By the end of that same chapter, they are past arresting and simply pick up stones to kill him where he stands, and he walks out of the temple untouched. Until the hour strikes, the schedule itself is a shield, and Jesus says the mechanism out loud so that nobody can call it an accident later. Talking about his own life, he says, "No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again." That is the boldest claim from the hook, and here it stands in its own context. His life will not be taken. It will be handed over at a time he and his Father have already set. Which turns the whole question around. The mystery is no longer how he kept escaping. The mystery is what exactly this clock is waiting for. The answer comes at the last Passover before the cross, and it comes from the last direction anyone was watching, the door. Now among those who went up to worship at the feast were some Greeks, outsiders, non-Jews, drawn to the God of Israel, in Jerusalem for Passover. They find Philip and make one of the politest requests in the Bible. "Sir, we wish to see Jesus." Philip tells Andrew. Andrew and Philip go and tell Jesus. It reads like a minor logistics note, two disciples relaying a visitor request, and then Jesus answers. And the answer is the sound of a bell going off. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Has come. After a whole gospel of not yet, not yet, not yet, two foreign strangers knock on the door and the clock strikes. But why now? Why them? Nothing about the Greeks looks momentous, but their arrival is a headline from the future. The nations are starting to come. The mission that will carry this name to every people on earth has just sent its first two representatives. And Jesus reads their arrival the way he read the wine and the temple police. On the clock his Father set. A few sentences later, he says it plainly. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." And John adds a note so nobody misreads it. He said this to show by what kind of death he was going to die. All people drawn through a death. The strangers at the door were the first of that harvest, arriving before the seed was even in the ground. For the world to come in, the hour has to strike. Then he tells you what striking means, in a picture a child can hold. "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit." The hour is a death, his death. That is what the clock has been counting toward since Cana. But notice the word he attached to it first, because it is the last word anyone would pick for an execution. Glorified. In John's vocabulary, the hour of the cross and the hour of glory are 1 hour, a single appointment in which the dying seed becomes the harvest. And in case anyone thinks the clock made the appointment painless, John lets you hear what it costs. "Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? But for this purpose I have come to this hour." This is John's Gethsemane, compressed into 3 sentences, prayed standing in public. The prayer to be saved from the hour is voiced and declined by the one praying it. He looks at the appointment, names the dread honestly, and walks toward it, because the appointment is the purpose. "Father, glorify your name." And a voice answers from heaven. Only the 3rd time in the Gospels the Father speaks aloud. "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." From this point, John writes the arrived hour like a bell still ringing. The very next chapter opens, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Knew. The clock is not happening to him, he is reading it, and what he does with his final knowledge of it is love. In the upper room that night, he reaches for one more picture of the hour, and it is the warmest one in the gospel. When a woman is giving birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish, for joy that a human being has been born into the world. That is what he says his hour is like. Labor, real anguish with no way around it, and on the other side, a joy that swallows the memory of the pain. And on the last night, he lifts his eyes and hands the whole schedule back to the one who said it. "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you." That is where all the not-yets were headed. A son on time asking his Father to keep the appointment they had made together, and calling it glory. The clock was never counting down to a defeat. It was counting down to a coronation. Before the garden, Jesus tells his disciples what the striking hour will do to them, and he does not soften it. "Behold, the hour is coming, indeed it has come, when you will be scattered, each to his own home, and will leave me alone. Yet I am not alone, for the Father is with me. They will run, he will stay, and the Father will be there." Then the other Gospels pick up the clock and carry it into the garden itself. On the night of the betrayal, Jesus takes his disciples to Gethsemane to pray, and the word is everywhere. He asks the 3 closest to him to stay awake, and when he finds them sleeping, the question he asks Peter is a time question. "So, could you not watch with me 1 hour? 1 hour. The story has been counting hours since a wedding, and the 3 closest friends Jesus has sleep through the last one. Mark tells you what the praying was about, and it is the same prayer John recorded in public. He prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. Matthew keeps the words themselves. "My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." Listen to how the 2 accounts fit together. The hour might pass, the cup might pass. The cup and the hour are 2 names for one appointment. It did not pass, or rather, he would not make it pass. He wakes them with the sentence the whole Bible has been building. It is enough, the hour has come, the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Then the torches arrive, and Jesus says something about the clock that is easy to miss and hard to forget. To the men arresting him, chief priests and temple officers with swords and clubs, he says, "When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness. Day after day, they could not touch him. He knows exactly why the earlier arrests failed, and he says so to the arresting officers' faces. And then he hands them the clock reading. This is your hour. The dark gets an hour. For one appointed span, evil is permitted to do its worst to the Son of God. But listen to who is telling the dark what time it is. The prisoner. The hour of darkness does not catch him any more than the temple police did. It arrives on schedule, inside a calendar that darkness did not write. This is the place to be precise, because a clock can sound like fate, some blind machine grinding forward. That is the exact wrong picture. An hour has an owner in this story, and the owner is a father. When the apostles preached the cross a few weeks later in the same city that watched it happen, this is how they said it. This Jesus was delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God. And when the church in that city prayed about the cross, they told God plainly that Herod and Pilate and the mob had done whatever your hand and your plan had predestined to take place. Paul reaches for a calendar of his own to say the same thing. When the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son. Not fate, a father, and an appointment the Son had agreed to keep with him, set at the exact hour history was built around. So what does a study like this one leave you holding? John writes this word one more way, the quiet way. An hour is coming. At a well in Samaria, Jesus tells a woman with a complicated life that an hour is coming when true worshipers will worship the Father anywhere, in spirit and truth. And in the temple, he goes further, into the strangest tense in the gospel. Truly, truly, I say to you, an hour is coming and is now here, when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. An hour that is coming and is now here. Still future, already striking. That is the hour the cross unlocked, and it is the one hour in this study that has your name in it. The voice that said, "My hour has not yet come," at a wedding, and "The hour has come" when the nations knocked, is the same voice that right now calls dead things to life. Spiritually dead people hear him and live. And one day, he says, all who are in the tombs will hear his voice and come out, those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of judgment. There is an hour ahead of every person watching this, and it is one of those two. The appointment he kept purchased the appointment he offers. The clock that struck once at the cross has been striking in ordinary lives ever since, every time someone hears that voice and comes home. And the clock over your own life is in the same hands. David prayed it in one short line that sits very well next to John's Gospel. My times are in your hand. The hand that timed the cross is the hand holding your days now, the ones you can account for and the ones you are afraid of. That is not a slogan. It is the verdict of the story. The cross did not catch him. He kept the appointment. Sometime tonight, read John chapter 12 for yourself. Watch two strangers knock, and watch the clock strike, and listen for the word he chose for it, glorified. His hour was the cross, and he called it glory. Your hour is now, and he calls it life.